On a stormy winter night, when the wind howled like hungry wolves behind the worn-out windows, the last lamp in little S life went out. It was not the sound of thunder that frightened him, but the heavy silence of his father, who lay motionless in the middle of the cold room. The scent of camphor and death filled the air, mixing with the smell of burnt bread his stepmother had forgotten in the oven, preoccupied with calculating the inheritance before the grave's soil had even dried. Yusuf was no more than 10 years old, thin, wide-eyed, carrying in his gaze a purity not yet stained by time. He had believed his stepmother would become a substitute mother to him. But the moment his father was buried and the mourners returned to their homes, the mask fell. She did not wait for mourning. She gathered his few worn clothes into a black garbage bag and opened the wooden door that groaned from the cold. She shoved the boy harshly. He stumbled and fell face first into mud mixed with rainwater. She slammed the door behind him. The sound of the iron bolt locking was like a death sentence for his childhood. Yusuf found himself alone in the darkness, without shelter, without cover, except for God's mercy, which encompasses all things. He wandered through the alleys of the old city while stray dogs barked at him and the cold gnawed at his small bones. The only place he found to take refuge was a narrow corner beside an old bakery, drawing warmth from the wall next to the oven. He slept with frozen tears on his cheeks, dreaming of his father's hand gently brushing his hair. The next morning, Yusuf did not beg. Instead, with tired eyes, he searched for work. He went to the black coal market, a place adults avoided because of its harshness and suffocating dust. He offered his services to the merchants. One of them agreed to hire him as a coal porter. The sight was heartbreaking. A small child carrying coal sacks twice his weight. His back bent nearly to the ground, his legs trembling with every step. Black dust covered his beautiful face until only the whites of his eyes shone in the darkness like two moons in a pitch-black night. He earned only a few coins, barely enough for bread and a piece of cheese. Yet he held those coins in his cracked little hands and thanked God with a content heart, while his stepmother enjoyed the warmth of his father's house, thinking God was unaware of what she did. Days passed, and Yusuf sank deeper into coal's blackness, but his heart remained pure white. He watched children go to school in clean clothes with colorful bags, and silent pain squeezed his heart. He would stand behind the school fence near the coal market, listening to the teacher explaining language and mathematics lessons. The teacher's words fell upon his heart like cool water on a hot day. Despite exhaustion from carrying heavy loads from dawn to sunset, he made a decision that would change history. He began collecting discarded books and papers from the trash, wiping off the dust, and reading them under the dim streetlight at night after his grueling work. He slept on hard coal sacks, using a torn book as his pillow. People in the market called him the coal boy, believing his future was written in black like his trade. They did not know that this child, sleeping with ashes covering his face, was memorizing legal texts and jurisprudence problems that even grown men struggled with. 7 heavy years passed, like 7 centuries of silent suffering. The fragile child grew into a thin young man, his body marked with wounds that never fully healed. He carried 50-kilogram sacks up staircases to wealthy homes. Sweat mixed with coal dust, turning into black liquid that stained his skin. People called him the Black Phantom. Yet though labor bent his spine, it never bent his will. He deprived himself of dinner to buy oil for a small lamp, paper, and ink. At night, after washing the coal from his hands, he devoured books on law and jurisprudence. He secretly attended court sessions, standing by the door in ragged clothes, analyzing cases in his mind. He saw the poor oppressed because they could not afford skilled lawyers. He remembered his own tears the night he was thrown out and swore to become a voice for those who had none. Meanwhile, news reached him that his stepmother had sold the land, squandered the money on luxury and jewelry, and neglected the house. She believed wealth would last forever, and that Yusuf had died or vanished. But fate had one more blow prepared. One day, after delivering coal to a palace, a gold coin fell from the wealthy owner's bag under the coal sacks. Later, the man accused Yusuf of theft. Guards dragged him through the streets, beating him publicly. Before the crowd, Yusuf, bleeding but calm, spoke in flawless classical Arabic. The principle states, "Proof lies upon the claimant, and the oath upon the one who denies." You accuse without evidence, and I deny truthfully. Search me. If you find nothing, I have the right to demand restoration of my honor for public defamation." The crowd fell silent in shock. But instead of justice, he was beaten severely and exiled from the city. Lying on the cold ground, he cried out to God, "O Lord, they have closed every door before me, but your door never closes. I am overpowered, so grant me victory." At that moment, a noble elderly man, a chief judge from a neighboring city, happened to pass by. He heard Yusuf's supplication. After hearing his story, the judge said, "The words you spoke do not come from a thief, but from a scholar." He took Yusuf with him. Years later, Yusuf became a renowned judge, known for justice and wisdom. One day, he was appointed judge of the very city that had expelled him. In his courtroom, his first case was between a poor old woman and a wealthy lady who had seized her land. The wealthy lady entered arrogantly. It was his stepmother. Beside her stood the same merchant who had once accused him falsely. Yusuf revealed his face. Recognition struck them like lightning. He ruled to return the land to the poor woman. He confiscated half the merchant's wealth for perjury and distributed it among the poor of the coal market. As for his stepmother, he sentenced her to live under legal supervision in her old crumbling house, the same house from which she had expelled him, to taste the bitterness she had forced upon the orphan. The people celebrated him as the judge of coal, but Yusuf went quietly to his father's grave. He placed his forehead on the earth and wept, not tears of sorrow, but of gratitude. Time had completed its circle. God had granted justice to the oppressed, even if after a while. And he proved to the world that whom humans break, the Lord of humans restores, restoring them in a way that astonishes both earth and heaven.